If you like Top 5 Tanks, please subscribe to the Tank Museum's YouTube channel.
My name's Jonathan. You might remember me from episodes of the Matilda and Workshop Diaries. I've been asked by those upstairs to give you my favourite tanks within the Tank Museum here in Bovington at Dorset. So ladies and gentlemen, here are my top 5. Number 5 on my list, the Tank Fury. We used this during the shooting of the film. Spent many weeks in a very cold October out in the field maintaining this vehicle and getting it to run and making sure that in the morning when the cameras were rolling, she was out with her associated stars sat in the top. Amazing experience being on a film set. It's unbelievable how many people have to work together in order to make it happen. Gave me the opportunity to speak to people that are way better in front of the camera than I am, and maintain this in the field, which is again another learning experience for all of us, because we had to work in the mud with limited tools, and anything that we had to do we had to get back from the museum. So I'll put it down as one of the good experience. It certainly taught me a lot about this vehicle. It was another first for me inadvertently, because I did get to be in the film, albeit undercover. When the Tiger 131 pulls out to attack the Shermans in the battle scene, I'm in the bow gunner's seat firing the machine gun. We still continue to work on Fury to this day. It runs on Tank Fest and the Tiger Days and some other major events. For this reason and all the other ones I've described, this is why it's my number 5. This is my number 4, which is the Mark V, and although this tank's got an amazing history, we first got together way back in 1985. At that time I was serving in Paderborn in Germany, and all 4 tank regiments got presented with their new standards by Her Majesty the Queen at Sennelager. This tank was part of the parade, and once we'd done it, it was parked outside my squadron lines on Barker Barracks. I went down to have a look at it, and the late Chatty Taylor was prepping it to load, and he took me inside and sat me down right here where I'm sitting now at 17 years old and explained to me what it took to get this thing to run. I'd just come off my Chieftain driver's course, and I was amazed, only having to put down a couple of switches to get the tank that I was driving going, what it actually took to start this. It sparked an interest in tanks and history, which continues to this day. Another feature of this tank, of course, is the shape of it, which appears on the Royal Tank Regiment's cap badge. So that was my number 4. Let's look at number 3. Number 3 on my list is this exhibit here, and it's called the Centurion Cut in Half tank. Now, because 10/9 of the population don't understand fractions, the reason it's called that is because it's in 2 halves. If you think back to a famous film where the villain goes, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die," a lot of people think that that's the way that this tank was made. In reality, it was much more difficult than that. All of the internal components had to come out, and then the hull was completely gas-axed, and then inside all of those components then had to be cut individually to maintain the lines that you see aside of you. The reason I love this tank is because the vehicle itself was an extremely good vehicle, a world beater in fact when it came out. From a standpoint of the public experience, when they come and see this, they can actually get a really good idea of what's going on inside a tank, how many people there are and how cramped it is, and the sheer technical ability of the people that made this exhibit possible. And that's the reason it's my number 3. Number 2 on my list is the Matilda 2. The reason I've picked it is for a year and a half of my life I was fortunate enough to be part of the team that stripped this vehicle down to nothing and rebuilt it into running condition. It remains to this day one of the proudest achievements of my life. It allowed me to go on a little bit of an adventure to Australia to meet up with Matt McMahon and our Australian friends, where we retrieved all of the parts that we needed to get the engine running. To this day, it is still the only operating Matilda 2 in the Northern Hemisphere, and that allows us to display a much wider range of vehicles from World War II, learn how this thing ran, learn how to keep it running, and that's why it's my number 2. So here we are then, number 1 on my list, the Challenger 1 tank. A couple of reasons that I've put this on the top of my list. Firstly, from a professional standpoint, although I served on 3 main battle tanks throughout my army career, this particular one, at one time or another, I occupied every seat within the vehicle, be it driver, operator, loader and commander. It was the first tank that I actually commanded on operations. And when we made the step up from chieftain to challenger, there was an exponential increase in the ability of what we could do and the speed and the tempo of how we did it. Like the chieftain, it had a very accurate gun. Unlike the chieftain, it had a very good power pack, and it was extremely maneuverable on the battlefield. With the addition of other things such as the thermal imaging, so that we could fight at night, and satellite navigation, albeit in handheld devices at that time, we could operate 24/7, which gave us far less sleep, and we had far more work to do, increasing the pressure on all of the crew concerned. From a personal standpoint, there's an awful lot of memories that I carry to this day of what went on inside that turret and inside that vehicle. The first crew that I ever had, I can still remember all of the names and even down to how many sugars they had in their tea. You live out on this thing in the field, you have to cook, wash, do everything, and at the end of the day, be at a moment's notice to move to go out and battle. For that reason, and all the memories that I have associated with this vehicle, that is why it is my #1 tank. Thank you for watching my choice of top 5 tanks. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe to our Tank Museum YouTube channel and support us on Patreon. My name's Jonathan, and that's it really. I'll try again.